Okay, it's 12:14 p.m. on Wednesday, December 3rd, 2014, and I don't ordinarily do the my video journal this early, but I've got some stuff I've got to do later, so I figured if I do it now, then I can just, get it done. And I'm going to try to go for an hour and 45 minutes because that's how much time I have. And okay, so let's get to it. I just woke up because I went to bed pretty late last night. I'm still fascinated by that stuff, DMT. I was just like listening to people who have tried it and because I've always been like into spirituality and religion and stuff, but like so much of conventional modern religion is such nonsense. The leaders just are clueless, and the religions themselves haven't evolved for a couple of thousands of years. Whereas this DMT stuff, I mean, it's supposed to be different than other kinds of it. It's not really a recreational drug per se. It's a spiritual drug where I mean, with again, my understanding is like with other kinds of drugs, people have experiences, maybe euphoria, whatever. But this is more about communicating with actual like beings, and again, whether they're imagined or not, you know. It's really fascinating. I gotta download a book on it. There's this guy Terence McKenna that kind of like pioneered all this stuff. Well, he popularized it a lot back in the 90s. I mean, it'd been around before that. But all right, so on to happiness, because happiness is what is. um, all right, so yeah, again, I don't like to prepare for this stuff, but I did prepare, or I was thinking of something while I was in the shower. Just the idea. Oh, see, all right, we're gonna explore the fundamental nature of happiness, and what I mean by that is how it's related to everything. I mean, in other words, there are so many different kinds of ways to access this experience of happiness. You're with friends, you're watching a movie, you're listening to music, you're exercising, you're eating some delicious food, smelling, wonderful aromas, doing art, writing, reading, thinking, resting, walking. And the reason I could go on and on is because there isn't anything that we ever do that's not about happiness. Otherwise, why would we do it? And yeah, sometimes we'll do some work that will be kind of work that we don't want to do, and that won't necessarily create happiness in the moment for people. That's kind of like an investment in happiness, but still, I think even in those cases, those are potential mechanisms for happiness. So the idea is that so this experience of happiness, I'm all congested. I was drinking this soy milk, and I think that does it. I like it though. But yeah, this experience of happiness is so ubiquitous, so it's so essential. It's all we want, and we might pretend that it's not, that we value other things. For example, we might pretend that we value goodness, but no, the only reason we value goodness is it because it facilitates or leads to very often happiness. It creates happiness. If it didn't, we wouldn't. And even so, I mean, like, just consider our habit of eating animals when we know what they go through. You know, we deny their pain, we deny their suffering, we deny, you know, most people don't look at it. Just that they refuse to look at it, because if they looked at it, if they thought about it, then, you know, they wouldn't be able to eat those animals anymore, just, you know, based on knowing what those animals had to go through to get there, you know, to get on their plate and all. So yeah, we're really not about morality as human beings. Again, look at, like, for example, like, if you really think about abortion, um, you know, it's kind of like a horrible thing, you know. Um, a billion people, you know, on the planet that don't have enough to eat because, like, so many of us, like, have so much more than we need, but because we're driven by this, we're not driven by morality, I'll tell you that much, because we're driven by this thirst, this quest for more and more happiness. You know, we become horribly callous, horribly indifferent to people, to children. Look at the homeless situation, you know? I mean, like, it's pervasive. It's like, you know, we used to, like, think, well, yeah, we don't really care about them over there because we're busy caring about us over here, but now we've gotten to the point that we don't really care about us over here too much either. Um, I don't, I don't, I don't want this to be kind of like an editorial on stuff. Um, you know, and we all know that we suck in a lot of ways. That, you know, and now actually, you know, I mean, like, that's one reason I do this, my work on free will, just like promoting, explaining to the world that this stuff we do is not up to us. It's just not, because you know, to the extent we understand that, fine, we're still like horrible people, but if it's not, if what we're doing isn't up to us, then we can't really blame ourselves, and, you know, we can't really dislike either ourselves or other people, you know, on a fundamental level. So, all right, back to happiness. Testing, 1, 2. I'm telling you, I gotta, like, you know, my voice is all hoarse. I just woke up, you know, took a shower, and I'm here maybe like 15 minutes later or whatever. But, well, I had some tea. All right, so, like, happiness, and, like, I'm glad, you know, again, like I mentioned before, this is related to the free will thing, that I'm glad that the universe is having me do this, that God is having me do this, because, well, because, you know, actually, this is an experiment. This is really an experiment. I mean, this is an experiment in a happiness intervention. You know, there's a lot of different ways that researchers attempt to induce happiness in their subjects and studies. You know, acts of kindness, gratitude, um, setting and achieving goals, conversing about happiness, whatever. So this is just like, you know, this is, I guess, what might be referred to as happiness journaling, except it's a video journal, because I don't want to write this down. And then, like, you know, the publicizing component, the getting this out there, I'm not sure it's all that related to this exercise, to this experiment, because there have been times in my past where you know, I think I mentioned, you know, back in the late 90s, I recorded 500 hour-and-a-half audio tapes of just this kind of, but it was about everything. I was just exploring. It was a cool thing to do. But, you know, I didn't need the motivation to get it out there to do it. So, like, I don't think I really need to publish these videos to be motivated to do this, but it is an inducement. It, you know, it does help. And then sometimes I, you know, kind of like, it's like a wild card, you know, like, it'd be cool if if other people began to do videos of themselves more. Just like, I mean, I happen to be talking about happiness because I'm very focused on it, because that's, I recognize that that's all there is, that that's all I want, that's all anybody wants and all, but like, you know, it'd be cool for people to just talk about whatever, talk about nothing, just come on here and just like, have nothing prepared and just talk about absolutely nothing. That'd be so cool. Because I think it's sometimes during those talks where it's not about like, you're not talking about how to do this or how to do that or how to, understand this or that, when you're just like expressing your thoughts. All right. So, so yeah, and again, the goal of this is to rewire my mind more. The idea is that the more I do this, the the more I'll think about happiness, the more I think about happiness, the more I'll feel happy, and hopefully it'll be like an upward spiral in that way. And I'm not smiling as much as I, would want to, and I should. All right, I'm going to try, because all right, why am I not smiling? Why? Because it takes effort. All right, some people are really into effort. Some people will go to the gym and, like, I mean, this is effort, but I think the kind of effort that I'm more comfortable with is kind of like, the effortless effort in a way, where some people are like, yeah, if it really feels like they're exerting effort and willpower and stuff, they're into that stuff. I'm not as much into that. But nonetheless, having said that, I don't think I can try to smile more, because if I smile more, you'll probably be smiling more yourself and say, whoa, this stuff works. It's not about comedy or humor, although actually, like, if I ever get courageous enough, because I'm inhibited in this way, but if I ever get the courage, summon up the courage, or get drunk or something, yeah, I'll do some like laughter yoga or some, where I'll just like pretend to be laughing, and then hopefully if I'm doing it right, it'll turn into genuine laughter, and then the key, then the challenge would be to see how long I can sustain it. Because I mean, people do this. They're called laughter clubs. They're all over the world. People get together in groups and just, I mean, it's probably easier when you're with people, because you're looking at each other and you're making silly faces or whatever, and just like making each other laugh, and you bounce off each other with the, the responses to it and all. But all right, so like, again, when I think about happiness, when I talk about happiness, I always kind of like want to get back to the fundamental of it. What is it? What is it that is so ubiquitous, that is so essential to our being, that so much in life evokes it, and that it's really our only desire, because you can't say that about anything else. That's the thing. Happiness is unique within the fabric of reality. It's unique in that way, and that's why, all right, might as well get into this kind of like defining it in a way that expresses its quintessential nature. In other words, like, it's not just an emotion, it's not just a feeling, a mood, a state. It's like it's our soul's deepest desire. But like, attaching it to God, a lot of times, like, we value God, and again, like 80–90% of us in the United States, it's either God or a higher power. I mean, it's pretty much basically synonymous. But I've spoken about this before, and it makes a lot of sense. Sometimes we're comfortable defining God as as goodness, or God as love. But I think the most accurate description of God in terms of why we value God, um, why, what the connection with God involves and brings us. I think, to the extent that we move from those, God is goodness and God is love to God is happiness, I think that's probably a more accurate and a more accurate definition, and probably a more effective definition actually at at bringing people to God in a sense. A lot of people don't, well, yeah, and actually, just to segue back to this DMT stuff, one guy I was listening to last night, he had like a whole hour talk. That's why, didn't get to sleep till pretty late. And I listened to the whole thing, and, at one point he said, like, with any atheists, he said, I guarantee you do this stuff, you know, and you won't be an atheist anymore. Because it's kind of like, and yeah, because like one guy who came to my meetup, Michael Donovan, who had done ayahuasca recently, and it's legal. This stuff, I'm not advocating anything that's illegal here. So like these ayahuasca ceremonies, it's a religious rite, and people, are drawn to the spiritual aspect, because this is not a recreational drug. It's a plant. Ayahuasca is basically a plant from which the DMT is derived, and then an MAO inhibiting creating plant that makes the experience last longer. So like, this guy Michael was explaining to me that, like, he was asking these beings, like, so like, you know what is God? He asked them, what is God? And then they said to him, God is like the regional manager, district manager of this segment of the universe, or something like that. And you gotta, like, you have to question whether that information is correct. Actually, the first time I kind of like thought about that in some detail was, there's this guy, the Magus of Java, I think that's what it's called. There's some videos about him. He's like he apparently, I don't know how real it is, but he's apparently good at psychokinesis. There's this one video where he's like, well, actually, some of this stuff is real. In other words, like, he had some, I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. It seems really real. He had some photographers, some filmmakers, visit him, I guess in Java where he was. And like, he's shown, videotaped, like, apparently he can like create a very strong electric shock in his hand. It has to do with, I guess, like this ki or chi energy just focusing. I don't know how, I have no idea of the mechanics of it. But anyway, he's shown, like, he wants to demonstrate this. People want to see if it's real because they've heard about it. And he has, like, he shakes hands with the sound person, of this camera crew. And like I think it was a woman, she recoils, and because it's a really, really strong shock and all. So anyway, this guy was saying that that when you do certain kinds of like exercises to awaken this chi, to be able to control it, to do what he does, this psychokinesis stuff, that you can get into, and I think his technique is meditation, that you can actually, communicate with these spirits, these quote unquote, I don't know, spirits, whatever. But then, I read, I think, a book where somebody like interviewed him. It wasn't by him, but like somebody interviewed him extensively, and he had said that that actually, you can't take what's being said to you, by these spirits too seriously, because sometimes they like to joke around. Sometimes they'll tell you stuff that's wrong just for whatever reason. So I don't know. So all right, and I'm not sure why I'm segueing to that. I want to get back to the happiness. So again, like, so let me just like, you know, reiterate that this is the challenge of happiness, to not get sucked into the distractions. Because yes, this ayahuasca stuff is interesting. There are so many things about life, about reality that are interesting. But, you know, interest, you know, it creates happiness, okay? But I guess what I'm trying to get at is like so many other things in life, you know, they create happiness, but they're not direct means to happiness, you know, and that's what this is about. This is about kind of like trying to cultivate a mechanism for happiness that doesn't require or involve anything other than the desire to experience this feeling and mood and state of happiness. That's what this is about, you know. And so the theory, the hypothesis is that, like, again, the more I do these video journal things, the better I'll become at accessing the feeling. And there's other ways of accessing the feeling. Again, like, you know, through meditation, through smiling, whatever. But they're you know, so like, and I guess in a certain sense, they're not completely direct, because you still have to choose to feel happy or smile or, you know, or talk about it, whatever. But they're more direct than a lot of other ways. Because, you know, in the sense that with a lot of other ways, the subject matter, you know, isn't happiness. The subject matter is, you know, something that's, you know, whatever, you know, whatever it could be, whatever hobby we might have. All right. So let's see. So yeah. So, like, you know, happiness is really all there is, and it's what we want, and it's amazingly curious that we're not better at it, because this isn't rocket science. See, that's what's so insane about the human race. We know this, and again, I can't blame us because we don't have a free will. In other words, like, we're not allowed to act on this very, very, very clear knowledge that we have. So basically, hold on, I gotta, anyway, so like, hold on, I gotta just see what, I got a message, nothing. All right, so, so that's the thing, I mean, like, so like, why the fuck does reality get us to understand how, you know, the value of happiness? Because we get it. Again, like, you know, in survey after survey for decades, people are like asked, what do you want most from life? And most people will say happiness. We get this. So then the question becomes, why doesn't fate or God or whatever's controlling this movie we're in allow us to go from that realization to acting upon it, to just like, to teaching kids happiness in school, to having like classes in happiness that everybody attends, because like, you'd be an idiot not to, you know, not to, like, 'cause like, and, you know, and why do you know, like, for example, like, we expend so much effort, so much time, so much money, you know, seeking happiness in ways that just don't work at all. Again, you know, this is like, you know, I'm in instruction mode or whatever. So like, education, job, marital status, gender, place of birth, parents, occupation, knowledge. I may be repeating myself. Just put all that stuff together, okay? Whether you have kids or not, how intelligent you are, how attractive you are, what part of the country you live in, what part of the world you live in. All this stuff combined accounts for only 10% of a person's happiness on average, 50% is genetic about, and 40% is, what we're doing now, intentional activity that isn't like circumstantial per se. So, so think about it, like, think about all the effort that we waste seeking happiness in within this 10% realm. Oh yeah, when I get this new job, I'm going to really be happy. When I get this raise, I'm going to be happy. When I get this house, I'm going to be happy. When I, always like relying, expecting these things that, have such little influence on our happiness to give us what we want. It's so incredibly, I can't blame us, because like, well, I mean, here, again, according to the research, we're just not, I can't blame us within our free will, but like, aside from that, according to the research, we're just not good at predicting what's going to make us happy, and because we don't have free will, it's not our fault. And so like, that's, in a way, that's kind of like why um, why I am doing this, that, along with kind of like ramping up my own happiness, I want to get this information out there so that people begin to think about it more, so that people people consider that oh yeah, people have like revelations. Oh yeah, happiness is what I really want. Happiness is really all there is. Happiness, is just a skill, to demystify happiness, to kind of like, to understand it to the extent that we begin to pursue it more effectively, more efficiently, less, not spending so much time and effort and money, not wasting so much time and effort on money, and money on things that don't create it. And a lot of times, these things not only don't create it, they distract us from it, and in certain cases they detract from it. For example, like people who read the news all the time. They may think, oh yeah, I'm like, it's so great to be up on things, to be knowledgeable about current events, about the state of the world and stuff. But unfortunately, it doesn't have to be this way and all, but in many cases, all that knowledge just gets you anxious, gets you worried, gets you preoccupied. What's going to happen to the market? What's going to happen to the climate? To whatever. So, all right. So like, now, again, what's cool about this is, while I will be repeating myself some, I have a kind of like a tendency to not want to do that too much. I'll do that for emphasis and all, but so like, I'm just curious as to what I'll be talking about, and what I could do, maybe what I should do, because again, I am reading this book by Sonia Lyubomirsky, The How of Happiness, and she's like the top happiness increase expert right now in the world. She focuses on interventions in psychology designed to raise the level of happiness of subjects through various means. And the problem is, I guess, like, for example, like gratitude, or acts of kindness, whatever. A lot of these things are very basic, but still, I should probably listen to it just to get inspired in terms of like, to bring more ideas into this. But again, all right, the strategy, my principal strategy, and like, I've got it, file in my MP3 player that I actually want to get a better file of it. Maybe I'll do this later today. That it's just me saying to myself, I feel completely happy, and like, to try to understand how and why this works. Imagine you've got your you know, you're listening to your music with your headphones or whatever, and you're listening to the music, right? But you know, you're driving or you're walking along somewhere or you're relaxing, and your mind, the key here's the thing, your mind isn't where the music is all the time. You might, you know, in other words, like you listen to it and then you have a thought, you listen some more, you have another thought. It's just like back and forth. It's kind of like a background thing, right? It's background. And and that's what this, you know, I feel completely happy technique, you know, is. It's kind of like an anchor. It's like, you know, it sets as your default position. I feel completely happy. And yeah, so like, in other words, like to give an example of how this might work, so like you're listening to it, but then your thoughts constantly, you can't even avoid it, you know, it's so, it has to happen. Your thoughts will go to, to some worry, you know, like all right, with me, I was thinking like, or something like, you know, my other computer isn't, I'd like to do this, make these videos on my other computer, but for whatever reason, it's not working. And so it's like, that's on my mind a little. I'd like it to work. I may not get it to work, who knows? But like, so like my mind goes to that, you know, for a few seconds or whatever, and it may go back there, back and forth, you know, not just once. But then it returns eventually to my recognition that I'm listening to myself saying I feel completely happy. So it's kind of a way of reminding me, you know, oh yeah, you know, this isn't the way I'd like it to be, but I still feel completely happy. And a lot of it is like, you know, I mean, here's the thing. All right, let's go into cognitive dissonance. In psychology, there's a principle that like, let's say you, oh, how do we get free will? Free will. You've spent years believing that you have a free will, that what you do is up to you, what, you know, what your friends do is up to them, and we have this thing, this autonomy, you know, that nothing outside of our control is making us do what we do or influencing what we do. And then you read one of my books, or you watch a few of my 175 videos, or maybe you read Sam Harris's book, whatever. But you come to the realization that, the logical realization that, oh my God, free will is an illusion. You know, nothing is really up to me. And so like the cognitive dissonance is like, you have a long-standing held attitude or belief that is suddenly challenged by new evidence. And so now, you know, it's a conflict. You have conflicting different parts of your mind, your memory versus now new experience and evidence, conflicting with each other, and it creates a dissonance, a discomfort. You know, your mind isn't comfortable being at odds with itself. You know, it wants to resolve, it wants to kind of like, you know, not have these opposing aspects of itself. So what happens is, depending on, you know, various factors, it will either, as is the case with most people, because, well, because people, like, you know, value their happiness and aren't all that good at it, but maybe that's one reason why people don't get this free will stuff so very clearly, because like I guess I'm predicting that like the happier you are, the easier it would be to get that free will is an illusion. Because the reason I say that is like, you know, a lot of people will read the evidence, and this is like, I get people going to my Manhattan meetups that month after month after month, they come to these meetups and they get the logic, and then they can explain the logic. They can, like, you know, they don't argue against it. They you know, they understand, yes, you know, the logic all points to the irrefutable fact that free will is impossible. Yet they can't get themselves to admit that, because another part of their mind is saying, oh my God, if free will is an illusion, my life has no, whatever they tell themselves, I don't know. But like basically the fundamental dissonance there is like they are accustomed to achieving a certain degree of pleasure through the belief in free will, through the belief that stuff is up to them. And if they're not all that happy to begin with, because again, like the average level of happiness here in the United States is only 70%, and that's not all that high, then I would guess that like with that level of happiness, they're going to protect their happiness more, much more so. You know, they're not going to like give up that happiness. So yeah, naturally, my challenge in the free will thing is to kind of like present the information in a way that that helps them to see actually their life will be better and happier to the extent they overcome the illusion of free will. But you know, it's a tough hoe to sell. So whatever. It's tough. I mean, like, you know, it's a very, very powerfully ingrained belief. It really is. So anyway, so cognitive dissonance. So like, now how does it relate to happiness? Damn, I forgot my point with that. I don't know, maybe it'll come back. All right, so like with happiness, oh, no, it's gone. See, I segue, I sidetrack, you know, to things, and I forget what I was like, you know, thinking about. Maybe it has to do with the dissonance. All right, maybe there's just, you know, let me see if I can, you know, think it through. Is it a dissonance that like that we kind of like understand that that happiness is all we really want, all there is to want, and yet we don't pursue it? Nah, I think that might create somewhat of a dissonance, but I think that's relatively easy for people to come to terms with. They just say, well, you know, like, yes, I realize that happiness is what we want, and I realize I could be happier if I work on it, but it's like going to the gym. People say, yeah, it'd be great if I exercised more, but whatever. You know, I think we're kind of, it's kind of like the competing experiences are like, we like to feel comfortable. We like to not expend too much effort. You know, at least that's interesting because, like, you know, we don't expend effort on our stuff, you know, on our happiness and our body, our physical fitness and stuff, but we'll expend a lot of effort. I mean, it is, you know, we'll expend it on our job. It's really actually doing work for someone else, you know, that, you know, we are definitely gaining a benefit from it, but it's a, you know, it's somewhat of an indirect benefit in a sense. I mean, it's monetary, whatever. I mean, it's more of a, you know, it's more of a need than a want, but still, you know, a lot of us, you know, will put in a lot of extra hours. I don't know. All right, so like we're 38 minutes and 34 seconds into this, and we've got another hour to go, an hour and 7 minutes. Wow. Okay, and this is a workout. This is a mental workout because, like, you know, happiness. That's part of the challenge. In other words, like, if you can, like, if I, you know, for this, I'm the guinea pig in this. If I can, like, get myself to talk about happiness for an hour and 15 minutes today, then the time that I'm like, you know, I got to head into Manhattan later and got things to do before I do that, and, you know, while I'm like doing, you know, because a lot of stuff, you know, I may be walking around, I have to walk to get from place to place, whatever, that the hope is that while I'm doing all that, I will remember this hour and 15 minutes, and I will be fortunate enough to stay connected with my happiness there, like, to not be sidetracked, not tangent with other stuff. Um, okay. Right now, I'm feeling the effort of this. I'm definitely feeling the effort of this, and like, um, and part of me says like, oh man, this is work, but maybe that's like when you're like in the gym and you're kind of like lifting weights and you're beginning to feel the pain of it, and that's where stuff is happening. It's like you got to, I mean, like, no pain, no gain, whatever. All right. So again, well, let's get back to the smiling. I was talking to somebody about happiness yesterday. He runs one of the groups that I created at this community center, and I asked him actually to run tomorrow's group because I don't want to run it because I got other stuff I need to do, and somehow we got on the topic of like the world not being nearly as happy as it could be, and how could it become much happier very quickly. And what came to me, it's not the first time it came to me, it's just the idea that like if it was the custom, the practice, the routine in this country and in every country in the world, might as well make this global, for people when they're in public to smile, to have a pleasant facial expression, I'm very confident that would like increase people's level of happiness substantially. I think like within 2, 3, 4 weeks of something like that getting started, you'd have the average level of happiness here in the United States going from 70 to 80 or 90, easily to 80, I think. And that's how powerful smiling is, because it's difficult to smile without feeling better. It gets a little complicated. There's this for some people that may not work as well. Well, let me go into a bit more of the research. This guy, James Lang, I think his name is, and he revived this theory that Darwin had come up with, and someone came up with before Darwin actually, about facial feedback. The idea is like people generally think that something happens and we feel happy and then we smile as an expression of the happiness. But what these guys determined is like, while that may happen, what also happens, it can happen, is we smile, and it doesn't have to be about anything happening. It's simply because we smile, we feel happier. It's called facial feedback. Facial feedback hypothesis. I don't think it's a hypothesis anymore. They've pretty much validated the theory. And so that, I mean, the reason I'm going into this in a bit more detail is because like he discovered that like that kind of like works really well for 50% of the population, that he termed inner cue responders. I don't know if it's his term or if he's like, borrowing a term that existed before he did the research. They respond to cues evoked from within themselves. It's kind of like, intrinsic versus extrinsic in terms of goals, whatever. That's a similar kind of concept. All right, so like So, but what he discovered, so like, he discovered, for example, that people, you put a pen, between your teeth like that, it activates the zygomatic muscles, the smile muscles, and you don't even have to, be consciously smiling. But like, for example, in his experiment, people who did that rated cartoons, comics as being funnier than when, they didn't. So basically, they established that it creates pleasure, happiness, whatever. But again, but he realized that the finding wasn't all that robust. It wasn't so strong. So like then, it turns out, I think, close to 50% of people, that doesn't necessarily work or work that well. They're referred to as outer cue responders, and these people, incidentally, all right, with the inner cue responders, they'll smile, let's say consciously, and feel better smiling, but they might go to a party where, like, a party is supposed to kind of like be a place where people are supposed to have fun and be happy and stuff. But a party, won't necessarily make them feel happier, even though just the smiling will. Whereas the outer cue responders, they're responding to cues from outside of themselves. So they'll go to a party or a wedding or some kind of a festival, and because it's the expectation, whatever, because it's, parties are for that, they're responding to that, and that makes them happier. I think Laird ultimately theorized, I haven't done this research for like over 10 years, I don't think, but, looked into it. He basically theorized that this inner cue responding can be learned, and I guess the outer cue responding can be learned also. So, relative to this, like, to this idea that all that people have to do is just go out in public and smile as posture, pleasant facial expression, it would work in two ways. First, the half of the population, approximately, that becomes happier simply by smiling, they're going to experience that. And I don't want to lose my train of thought, but like, what might happen is, so like, let's say, and how this would be done. I mean, our leaders are so fucking stupid that this probably won't be done because, they won't see the wisdom in it. They're idiots. But, this would have to be promoted, through governments, through the media. This is what we're going to do. It's an experiment, But again, we're so fucking idiotic, or our leaders, that they're not close to, like, to seeing the value of things like that. But like, if something like that were to happen, then I don't think it'd be too much time before people, those inner cue responders who just smile and feel better, it wouldn't be too much time before they got into the habit, until they realized, hey, if I want to feel better, all I have to do is go outside and take a walk and smile, and I'm going to feel a lot better. So what after a few weeks, you'd have like people going outside, as an opportunity to do this smiling among people, and to check out, because I think other people smiling is another thing that makes people happier. And then I guess we'll get to that with the outer cue responders. So yeah, so what would happen then, like, these people would all of a sudden make being in public a much happier experience. And then all of a sudden, to the outer cue responders, just like, all of a sudden being outside would be very similar to being at a party or a festival or a wedding. All of a sudden in their minds, being outside has shifted from a kind of a neutral experience to experience where, if 50% of people are like happy because they're smiling outside, all of a sudden that's also like a happiness-inducing experience just because they're out there. So you have like the two groups of people smiling, feeling happy for two different reasons, but nonetheless, they probably even like reinforce each other. So, so that, that is one way that the world could become so much happier. And then you ask yourself, well, why don't we do this? I can't speak for other parts of the world. I've got a guess, that may apply to other parts of the world as well as this part. And I think a lot of times people look up to richer, more powerful people for cues on how to behave. It's this approval seeking from those they kind of like, they interpret somehow as like being wiser or more good or more knowledgeable, whatever, and so like I think the problem becomes that like a lot of rich people, I'm not sure this this applies. I don't know, because like, all right, a lot of rich people, I think when they're in public, they don't want to call attention to themselves. They don't want to get people envious of them because maybe they're afraid, well, if I like, just gloat, have this really, really uncharacteristically happy demeanor, or I feel, then I'm walking around people who are less happy, then, that's going to evoke envy and somebody will rob them or something. I don't know. The reason I question that, because I'm just thinking out loud here. The reason I kind of question that is because then you have a lot of people who will like dress with very expensive clothing, which I think would, but I don't know, maybe that kind of clothing isn't as powerful a message or signal. I don't know. But anyway, back to the original thing. Yeah, that's, if people were to do this, that would create a happier world. And like, so like, all right, but all right, so I talk about how stupid our politicians are. It's not just them, it's us. Like, for example, like, if I, who knows so much, who value happiness obviously so much, I've done a TV show, 138 episodes, run meetups on it, I've run dozens of groups. If I can't get myself to, like, during this video, maintain a smile throughout it, then that kind of tells you what a challenge it is to do something that seems so simple, but apparently it's not as simple as it appears. But I'm going to try, so I just reminded myself that I should be smiling more, and I'm going to try. All right, so why wouldn't I smile more? Part of it is like, if I'm trying to think, and for all I know, this might be a conditioned kind of behavior. I think a lot of people, when they think hard, when they're involved in thought, their brows come down and become squinchy, and like, huh, and all right, I'm thinking, I don't know, I'm thinking that actually that might be a learned behavior. In other words, like you're in school or you're kind of like being taught something by your parents, and I think little kids learn to kind of like assume or adopt that kind of facial expression to communicate to the adults that, yeah, I'm working on it, because otherwise the parents or the teachers will say, are you really thinking about this at all? Are you trying to get this? So, I mean, that's a guess. I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, no, if I can get myself to smile during these things much more, then that would be pretty cool. That would be pretty cool. So like, and yes, because like, smiles being the fundamental happiness behavior, You know, in other words, again, like all the people would have to do is like first, I mean, all right, let's hopefully I can regain my train of thought after this. Basically, getting back to the smiling in public proposal. Let's say that were to happen, you know, and like so, you know, everybody's like all of a sudden they get it. They get, yeah, all we have to do to feel better is fucking smile when you're in public, and not just smile, for God's sakes, greet people, you know. Don't be so afraid to say hi or just, you know, nod or just acknowledge people, you know, because that's powerful. So let's say that were to happen, and um, and um, and so people get accustomed to it. People, you know, again, they're going out more. You know, they're making excuses to go out. Oh, I forgot, you know, I forgot to get some bread. I forgot to get some mustard. You know, so they end up making excuses to go out more. And then it dawns on them. It shouldn't take long to dawn on them. Wait a minute. You know, it might be easier to to smile and feel happy through that smiling by being out in public, because you get a lot of reinforcement by other people doing the same thing. But, you know, I can also do this at home. Now, and as I'm saying that, I'm thinking, yes, you can. You know, I try to like do this, you know, at home once in a while, whatever. Yeah, just, you know, just basically, and again, the idea is like, you know, we have a thing of posture, you know, to kind of like stand erect, and according to the research, this isn't just like anecdotal. According to the research, you feel better when your you know spine is erect and stuff, and that's why it's advocated. That's why it's part of our culture. So so if people adopted smiling, pleasant facial expression, you know, you don't have to bare your teeth. Doesn't have to be an ear-to-ear grin. Just a pleasant facial expression to remind you to be happy and to communicate happiness to others. Um, I did lose my train of thought. That would be great. That would be great. But all right. But like you're inside, and so you want to try this. You want to try this. So but here's the thing. Like, I mean, hopefully, you know, hopefully what would happen would be that people would realize, well, damn, I mean, like, I'm watching television, and if the people on TV are smiling, maybe that'll work. I don't know. But like, I think that what I'm trying to get at is like a lot of times when we watch TV, people aren't smiling. People are like, you know, at each other, and they're trying to kill each other, or, you know, defeat each other, or, you know, just like, you know, there's a lot of competition, a lot of negativity. So like, you know, so this, you know, this might, I think what I'm trying to say is this might lead to like people realizing that, you know, just as like I can feel happy outside and others would evoke that happiness, that being inside, in order to recreate that experience somewhat, if I just like focused more on positive media. And I mean, like, this is a platform that hasn't been developed yet, you know, a kind of like a network, a video channel, you know, iPod channel is just totally positive. You know, it's completely about positivity, and, you know, and it could be drama, it could be, I mean, it could be like fiction, it could be, you know, storytelling and stuff, but without all the negativity. I mean, like, one of, that's interesting. No, let's get into like our completely dysfunctional theory of fiction. A lot of teachers, they're not very good at thinking. They're good at teaching. Because again, like, I understand this because like if teachers, professors were good at thinking, they would have figured out decades ago, centuries ago, that free will is completely impossible. But, you know, they generally take the easy way out. They kind of like, oh, well, you know, Kant and Hume, you know, thought we had a free will, and, you know, they don't like recognized that these guys thought they concluded they had a free will simply by changing the meaning of the term. I mean, like, they couldn't override their emotional need for free will, whatever, however well they understood it, but that it's impossible. But yeah, a lot of people will not think all this stuff through, like, about the fiction. So yeah, I think we're taught in terms of like literature, in terms of stories, that there has to be conflict, and conflict is like, I mean, in its most broad sense, it's like a challenge that has to be overcome. It could be completely non-confrontative or non-violent. It's kind of like, you got to get across a stream to, for something good to happen, or to avoid, something bad happens, whatever. And so it's kind of like maybe an engineering challenge, an architectural challenge to create some kind of bridge or something. But more often than not, when people create fiction, it's about interpersonal conflict. It's about one person whose wants and needs confront with another's, and they battle it out, and it's like it works on our most primitive reptilian kind of notions of, they're fear-based, survival-based, whatever, really stupid-based. And so yeah, I think my point is, like, a lot of the media is like this. A lot of, what we see in movies, on television. So part of this happiness thing would, I think, hopefully result in a shifting of our understanding of what fiction can be or needs to be. Fiction, a lot of times, is kind of like a mirror of life, but it's a mirror, it's a focused mirror. You're focusing on a certain aspect of reality, and then you're kind of like trying to recreate it, trying to imitate it, like art imitates reality. But see, the problem, I don't want to get too, this is, I think I'm like, yeah, this is like, I'm getting into stuff that, like, could happen, should happen, but probably is not going to happen. So, all right, one last point. So, like, all right, in terms of fiction depicting or imitating life. For example, let's say you were at a wedding. Okay, your day is about a wedding, so there might be a bit of anxiety. The bride might be anxious, whatever. Most of the rest of everybody else is like pretty much having a great time. You would hope. Again, those outer cue responders are happy because it's a wedding, and the inner cue responders are happy because the outer cue responders are happy, whatever. Everybody's smiling, so everybody's smiling, whatever. So that, I think what I'm trying to say is, like, you can create fiction that is very pleasant to experience and to watch, to observe, to take in, that doesn't require any amount of conflict. It's just like, it's depicting people enjoying themselves. Okay, man, it's like 1:03, and I've been at this since, what is it, 12:15, I think. I'm getting tired. I don't want to do this. I thought I'd go till 2 o'clock, but I am getting tired, and I think I'm kind of like noticing that, like sometimes you can over-exercise, and if you over-exercise, you end up kind of like not progressing as quickly as if you don't. So I think that's what I'm, sensing, that so now I'm going from kind of trying to understand happiness and, like, to these societal kinds of like, proposals that, I mean, who knows, they may eventually happen, but they're not going to happen anytime soon probably, right? So why address them? Okay, so with that having been said, I think what I am going to do is I'm going to end this now. Yeah, I think I want to end this now because I mean, like, because I also want to, like, I've got a lot of stuff I have to get done today, and I want to get to it. And so then I'll upload it later. I don't want to upload it right now because yeah, but I'll definitely upload it. It should be on by 5 o'clock or so. All right. So anyway, I hope you guys are having a good day. I hope the universe continues to have me do these things and to, continues to feed me some interesting, valuable insights, that I figure more stuff out. And a lot of this, it's not like I haven't thought about this before, but again, like for it to manifest good things, sometimes it just has to be thought about again and again and again. And so I hope that, to the extent you guys are watching, I mean, like, I don't think people are watching these anymore. I think that basically a few days ago I had like 16, 17 views on a couple of my videos, and like, I think yesterday I think only 2 or 3 people watched. But I don't care. I mean, again, this isn't really, I'm just putting them out there to put them out there. This is really for me, and yeah, it's an experiment. It's, I mean, like, the experiment is like, what is the effect of talking about happiness to oneself? Because it's really, that's what I'm doing. I'm basically verbalizing my thoughts, So the idea is you don't even have to talk to other people about this. You just have to think about it. And if you talk about it, well, if you think about it while talking about it, then that'll amplify the experience. So yeah, so it's an experiment, and hopefully it'll continue to go well. So again, I'm getting tired. Hope you're having a good day, and we'll see each other soon.